What's going on, guys? My name is Kyle and welcome back to the channel. Today, we are opening Pandora's box and we're going to talk about hooning. During the week, I put out some comments on social media asking how you guys felt about hooning culture. And I got quite a few responses with everyone's opinions on either side of the fence. Now, quick disclaimer, I am not here to tell you what to do. Everybody has their own opinions on this situation, as do I. I have my own views, my own thoughts on what's happening right now with car culture and the hoon culture in general. But everybody has their own thoughts and their own views, and that is totally fine. Now, the reason that I want to have this conversation is I feel like out there in car culture at the moment, a lot of the media and a lot of the things that you see is all about why you should hoon or how cool it is to be hooning or anything in that realm. And I feel like there's not a lot of media out there giving their opinions as to why you should keep it off the street and look more towards track use. Now, I understand one of the key factors here is it's not cool to be the person to say no. I 100% understand that. And that's a very similar thing that I went through when I was in high school getting my license for the first time. There wasn't a lot of people saying, don't do that. And I wish there were. At the time of recording this video, I'm 27, and I genuinely feel like it was my generation that really started putting the pressure on car culture. I'm not here to make excuses or defend anything from back in the day. That's not what I'm here to do. I want to talk about my experiences and the things that I've noticed of owning cars over the last 10 years. Obviously, these are just my opinions. I don't speak for everybody. I don't talk about anybody else's experience. I'm only talking about mine personally. So growing up and going through high school in the mid to late 2000s, I feel like there was a lot of movies and media and TV shows and all that sort of stuff about street racing, about drifting, and just about having a modified vehicle. It was sick. I mean, it still is sick. And it wasn't just movies and TV shows. I had so many car video games like this. It was freaking amazing. I'm talking Need for Speed, Juiced, Midnight Club, the whole Burnout series. There are so many that I could rattle off. And if you're a car lover, they were amazing. A lot of them still are. But the point I'm trying to make is we had all of those influencers, not influencers. Influencers weren't really a thing back then. But we used to idolize these things before any of us had a car or a license. And the minute I got my first car and my license with the ability to drive by myself, that was the first thing that came to mind, was being in the car by myself and thinking that I was the best driver ever. No one was faster than me, even in my shitty Falcon. But now, being a little bit older, I realize that that's absolutely not the case, nor was it ever the case. I am never going to sit here and say that I have a perfect driving record and I've never driven on the roads like that, because I have. I absolutely have. As some of you know, I left school really early. I started full-time work straight away and I've worked full-time ever since. The reason this is relevant is when I was 19 years old, I lost my license. I had too many speeding tickets and I lost my license. I didn't get to drive for 6 months. I had to get up at 4 in the morning and ride a push bike to the train station to try and get to work on time. And that's the only way I could get around. And it sucked. And at the time, I would blame everybody but myself. I would honestly just regurgitate things that I heard from other people to try and justify why I lost my license. The speed cameras are just about raising revenue, and the police bully and single out young drivers to make an example, and so on and so forth. And that's all I would hear from other drivers my age. But the reality is, I was driving like a douchebag, and I got caught. It's as simple as that. And I'm disappointed to admit how long it actually took me to come to that realization. When I had that realization, I remember thinking that I wish any of my friends had said, this is actually your fault. Or anybody had said to me, maybe you shouldn't have been driving like that. Nobody had made those comments. None of my friends had made those comments. Everybody just would regurgitate the same stuff that I mentioned earlier. Nobody would say to me that I was in the wrong. Now, I'm sure there probably was some older people in my life that did make those comments, but the point is, when you're 18 and 19 and you think you're the best thing since sliced bread, the opinions of your peers hold more weight than people who are older or have authority in your life. Again, I can't talk for everybody, but this is just personal things that I've taken away from my experiences. So through the whole period of growing up, everything that I'd been exposed to in the way of car culture was always these things that were depicted in the media of street racing or drifting or modifying cars in video games and doing that sort of stuff. That's what I built up in my mind. That's what I thought having my own car was going to be like. And unfortunately, I feel like everybody my age went through the same thing. So when we all started to get our licenses, everybody had the same mentality. There was a lot of things idolizing why you should do it, and not a lot of things showing why you shouldn't. Now here in Australia, specifically where I'm from in Melbourne, I remember hearing things from Victoria Police or seeing things from the police that were always trying to deter what was going to be the inevitable. At the time, we were 15, 16, and in 2 or 3 years, we were all going to have our own cars and be out on the road. And I think they knew this was coming, because I remember seeing campaigns from the Victoria Police explaining how uncool and unsafe it was to drive like that on the roads when you get your license for the first time. But like I said earlier, at that age, the opinions of authority or anyone older than you get squashed by the opinions of your peers. And unfortunately, it just led all of us to take our cars to the street. Now I understand street racing and toge and drifting and everything that comes along with it has been around well before people my age were even born. I 100% get that. And I'm not saying that any of those were wrong or right or justifiable or not. That's not for me to say. But when it got to the point of people taking over intersections to do donuts in the middle of traffic, to do skids in the middle of a residential area or near school zones in the middle of the day, when random people who have nothing to do with you or your car are put in immediate risk or at harm, something needs to be done. So obviously police are going to start cracking down more on younger drivers who think they know everything, and modified cars, because even if you do have a modified vehicle and aren't the kind of person to drive like that, you know as well as I do that whenever you go to a car meet, there's always one. There's always one person who thinks it's the coolest thing in the world to rip out and do a burnout and put everybody in the same group as that person. So at this time, when things were getting a little bit out of hand, unfortunately, you were put in the same basket due to association. Now, I'm not saying you can't go to car meets, or you can't be a car person, or you can't be within car culture, but I think there needs to be some sort of understanding as to if we don't change the mentality, everything will stay the same. Now, I will say, over the last couple of years, it has definitely got better. But imagine 5 or 6 years ago, instead of your friends patting you on the back and saying how sick it was to take over an intersection to do a donut, had an opinion and told you that it wasn't cool, and you put other people at risk, and it was dangerous. I feel like the car culture that we have today would be very different. In Melbourne, there's a lot of scrutiny over modified vehicles. What isn't safe? What's too low? What's this? What's that? And I understand that sometimes that list gets very extensive. I feel the same. I feel like there's things that I can't do to my car that I should be able to do to my car, but I'm not allowed to. Which, you know, it is what it is. I don't make the laws, I don't get to make those decisions. But I can only think how different it would be and how much more lenient it could be if some of the culture changed. Now, like I said, this is just my opinion. This is just my view on the situation. If you have a different one, I'm not saying that yours is wrong. That's not the case. I'm only talking my views and from my experience. You may totally disagree with me, which is perfectly fine. Everyone is allowed to have their own opinions. From my point of view, this conversation is important. I wish that when I was growing up, at least one of my friends had a different opinion to everybody else. If you have 10 friends and they're all saying exactly the same thing, you're not going to think any differently. You're not even going to consider anything else. But I feel like if you have 9 friends saying one thing with one friend telling you not to do that thing, it's going to make you as a person have that conversation with yourself. Now that I'm getting older, the people that were always younger than me are now at the age of 18 and going to be in the cars for the first time, put in the same position that we were when we were 18. And it worries me. It worries me to think that these guys could make the same mistakes that we did, because in the car world, it's uncool to voice your opinion on keeping it off the streets. This video is going to stir up a bunch of shit, but I feel like within our community, we need to have an open conversation about this. I don't know whether you agree with me or not, but I just feel like it was something we needed to talk about. I know this video was a little bit different to normal, and I'm sorry for putting a dampener on all the weird stuff we normally do. I just feel like this is an important conversation that needs to be had. If you guys like this video, don't forget to leave it a thumbs up. If you want to find us on any of our social media, I'll leave all the links in the description, and leave me a comment below. If you have an opinion, if you want to talk about it, let's talk about it. I'm open. There are no right or wrong answers. Other than that, I'm going to leave you guys to it. I'll see you in the next one. Bye!